Hey guys, tonight we begin with the forgotten life of a lantern lighter. Those quiet, barely remembered souls who padded through the cobbled arteries of gaslit cities, armed with a flame and a sense of duty that most people slept straight through. Picture this. It's 4 in the morning. The sky is thick and sulking, low clouds smearing over chimneys and rooftops like soot on a tavern mug. The streets are slick from yesterday's rain, still glistening under the faintest moonlight. And you? You're already up, already walking. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull on your boots, wet from the night before because, of course, they are. One has a hole near the toe that you've patched with wax cloth and prayer. The other just accepts its soggy fate. Your coat smells of burnt oil and rain, and a hint of despair that you now wear like cologne. Breakfast? If you're lucky, maybe a heel of bread. If you're really lucky, it's not frozen. You grab your pole, taller than you and twice as stubborn. It's topped with a hook, a wick lighter, and a small copper tray of fresh flame. This is your sword, your companion, your least romantic dance partner. Tucked under your arm is the tin of whale oil, thick and foul smelling, but vital. No oil, no light, no job, and no job. Well, you've seen what happens to the jobless. They become part of the scenery. The first steps into the pre-dawn street are always the worst. Not because of the cold, though yes, your breath fogs like a steam engine and your eyelashes might freeze shut if you blink too slowly, but because of the silence. It isn't peace, it's anticipation. Like the city itself is holding its breath. You pass shuttered shops, each with its own smell and sound memory. The butcher's with its sawdust and iron tang. The baker's, teasing you with the ghost of warm bread. The pawn shop window, cluttered with broken instruments and sad violins that haven't been played since Napoleon had better hair. You reach your first lamppost. It's crooked. It always has been. Someone leaned on it too hard after a wedding once. You called it Percy, for no reason other than sleep deprivation and loneliness. You uncork the oil tin, fill the little reservoir, and then slowly, ritualistically, you lift your pole, touch the flame to the wick, and watch light bloom like a soft breath in the dark. And just like that, you've begun. You move on. Dozens of these posts wait for you, some spaced far enough that your legs ache, others close together but blocked by crates, cats, or couples who never bothered to notice the sleepy figure with a pole trying not to trip over their romantic tryst. As you light more lamps, the city begins to stir. The sky hints at color. Not real color, just that faint smudge of dirty blue. That means another day is reluctantly arriving. You, however, are halfway through your route and fully committed to your fatigue. You've stepped in something suspicious. Again, your hand is now sticky with oil. Again, and your hat keeps slipping over one eye because you lost the tie string in 1842, or so it feels. Historians still argue whether lantern lighters were technically municipal workers or private contractors, as if your knees care. They don't. They just want you to sit down for one blessed minute. But there are more lamps and fewer hours before the city wakes fully. And your job? It's to light the way. There's poetry in it, you tell yourself. You are the keeper of dawn, a steward of safety, a bringer of light to dark corners where people forget to look. Of course, that poetry comes with cracked knuckles and the constant smell of fish fat, but who said art was clean? Occasionally, you meet another lighter on the route. You nod, maybe grunt. It's too early for words and too cold for conversation. Sometimes, someone offers you tea through a window. That's a good day. Once, a baker gave you a warm roll and you nearly proposed marriage. There's a rhythm to it. Light, walk, light, cough, curse, light again. A quiet, stubborn rhythm. You don't think about how invisible you are until a child asks, "Who makes the lights come on?" And the parent answers, "They just do, dear." Ah, magic. How flattering. By the time you reach the last post, your legs feel like wet rope, your fingers like splintered sticks, but the lamp flickers to life just as it should. And though no one saw it happen, you know, you were there. You made the morning. Tomorrow you'll do it again, unless the fog gets worse, unless your ladder breaks, unless someone finally decides the city no longer needs gaslight at all. But for now, the street glows behind you like a trail of amber stars, and you disappear down the alley, forgotten again by breakfast time. You carry your gear through the winding lanes like a priest with no congregation. Your pole bobs over your shoulder, clinking lightly with every step. The lanterns are lit, the street slowly waking up. But your day, technically, is far from over. You've got to check your tools: oil can, wick snuffer, hook blade, all coated in the fine film of soot and congealed ambition. Your hands, already roughened by years of climbing and kindling, are patterned with tiny burns and splinters. Your nails are blackened in a way no brush can clean, and your palms smell like every street you've ever walked. No perfume can compete with essence of whale oil, brass, and last Tuesday's puddle. You sit on the edge of a loading dock and take inventory. Your lantern cleaning cloth is more whole than fabric. Your spare wick spool looks like it was chewed by rats, probably because it was, and your ladder's hinge is squeaks like it's gossiping about your life choices. The tools of your trade are not glamorous. There is no golden glow, no wax sealed toolbox with velvet lining, just a sack, a bucket, a coat that doubles as a rag. You are your own repairman, safety inspector, and morale officer. Your ladder is the closest thing you have to a partner. Wooden, 12 feet, reinforced once with a piece of an old bed frame after that dramatic slip outside the printing press. The rungs are uneven, one cracks so badly it hums when stepped on. You keep forgetting to fix it, or maybe you just enjoy the drama. A reminder you're alive. Historians still argue whether lantern lighters were ever issued standard uniforms or equipment. Some claim certain cities provided leather gloves or monogrammed jackets. You wouldn't know. Your uniform consists of wool that has seen more winters than you've had teeth. You're fairly certain it's now held together by soot and spite. The oil can is your lifeline. It used to be new, shiny even. Now it's dented, covered in char streaks, and always a little warm to the touch, like it's absorbed all the late nights and reluctant mornings. Whale oil, rendered from massive creatures of the sea, sloshes around inside. It smells like a rotting fish married a candle and then got divorced bitterly. You can't smell it anymore. Your nose gave up. The lighter. Ah, the lighter. A simple metal cup mounted on the pole, filled with burning tow. It's both delicate and deadly. You've scorched your beard on it twice. You tried to shave after the second time. It didn't go well. You remember one morning, cold, wet, your fingers shaking. You tried to relight the flame, and the toe wouldn't catch. So you muttered to yourself, as one does, and the woman sweeping her stoop next door made the sign of the cross and offered you holy water. To this day, she still calls you Lucifer. You think she's joking. You hope. The soot? It's everywhere. Under your nails, in your sleeves, inside your teeth. It coats the back of your throat so thoroughly you suspect you might actually be part lantern now. When you cough, it's not a sound, it's a puff of history. Still, you take pride in the maintenance. You oil the hinge of your ladder with leftover fat from a street vendor's cart, only mildly rancid. You sharpen your hook with the side of a brick. You once tried using a whetstone, but that went missing, possibly stolen by a fellow lighter with sharper ethics than tools. Your pole is carved with tiny marks, notches mostly. Some count the number of lamps on your route, some mark particularly memorable falls. One is just a tiny drawing of a cat because you were bored and it was raining. There's camaraderie in the misery. You and the other lighters pass each other's gear around sometimes. Here, borrow my spare wick. Careful with that hook, it bites. Did you oil your pole? Or is that just sadness dripping off it? Your boots are a mechanical miracle. One has a piece of metal hammered into the sole because you stepped on a roofing nail last May. The other has layers, leather, cloth, and some sort of mystery padding that might be an old mitten. Walking in them sounds like someone juggling soup cans. Still, you walk. You always walk. You are part janitor, part firefighter, part ghost. You haunt the city in those hours before commerce and chaos. You fix the lights that no one notices until they flicker. You patch the wick when no one's looking. You scrape off old soot, replace cracked glass, and whisper encouragement to metal arms that lean too far from vertical. Some nights, when the fog rolls in thick and the gas settles just so, your own light casts a double shadow, one real, one memory. You watch yourself lifting the pole, the flame rising slowly, and you wonder how many more mornings like this are left. There's talk, you know, that the city wants to replace men with mechanisms, that your ladder and oil tin will one day be museum curiosities, that gas lights will light themselves, that people will flip a switch and never think about what came before. You polish your pole anyway. You check your can, because tonight the lamps are yours, and the city is still just dark enough to need you. The fog thickens as the morning wanes, curling around your ankles like a cat that doesn't like you very much. It muffles the sound of your steps, your breath, even the occasional wheeze from your knees. You lean into it, your ladder slung over one shoulder, your pole bobbing gently like a walking stick for someone who doesn't trust the ground. You reach the next lamp and look up. It's a tall one. Why are they always taller when your legs are more tired? You brace the ladder against the post. It wobbles because, of course, it does. Every lantern lighter develops a unique sense of balance. Not the elegant kind that ballet dancers have. Yours is more desperate improvisation, like a chicken walking a tightrope in boots. Your fingers find the first rung and you climb. Step, step, step. The world narrows. Below, the city blurs into mist. Above, the lamp leans just slightly to the left, daring you to make a mistake. You smell the damp metal. You hear the faint hiss of gas leaking from a loose valve. Comforting, you reach the top. Your coat flaps gently in the wind. You cradle the lantern's globe, lift the latch, and peer inside. There's always something, a dead moth, soot buildup. Once, memorably, a coin someone jammed in there, maybe for luck, maybe just drunk. You clear the grime, trim the wick, and relight it. The flame catches like a secret whispered to the wind. You secure the cover, climb down slowly, carefully, like someone who's both afraid of falling and slightly annoyed that gravity exists. Back on the ground, your knees whisper obscenities. You ignore them. The next lamp waits. You trudge on, breath frosting in front of your face. In this fog, each lamp you light feels like a tiny sun, brief, flickering, but necessary. Without you, this entire alley would vanish into gray. Some streets feel longer than others, narrow ones with uneven cobbles and sharp corners that ambush your shins. You remember one such street fondly. That's where you once stepped on a fish. Not metaphorically, an actual fish. Just lying there, in the middle of the lane like it owned the place. You slipped, fell backward into a barrel, and heard polite clapping from a drunk nearby. You didn't even get the fish. Historians still argue whether lantern lighters were considered prestigious trades or merely tolerated ones. Some say you were respected for your service. Others claim you were treated like a glorified lamppost janitor. Truth is, you were both. Revered at night, forgotten by breakfast, like a dream no one wrote down. There's no protection from the elements, by the way. Your coat, thick as it is, doesn't stop the damp from sneaking in. Your gloves, patched, mismatched, and made from 3 different animals, do little against the wind. But you carry on, because one lamp out means one more corner, where someone could trip, or fall, or disappear. You remember that time a constable stopped you, convinced your gear was suspicious. "What's in the can?" he asked. "Magic," you said, too tired to explain whale oil. He laughed and let you go, but kept an eye on you, like you might turn into a protest. Kids sometimes follow you. They call you the fireman or Mr. Matches. One brave girl once asked if you lit the stars too. You said yes, because why not? You reach another post. It's crooked, leaning toward the bakery like it's hungry. You don't need the ladder for this one. You reach up, light it easily, and for a moment you admire your handiwork. It's not much, but in that little pool of warm light, the fog looks almost golden. The world feels less cold. Then you move on. There's a rhythm to the climb, the reach, the flicker of flame. Some lighters hum while they work. Others mutter to themselves. You? You talk to the lamps. Not always aloud. Just little murmurs. "Hold steady now. Let's not explode today." Good lad. Because when the city forgets your name, it's nice to pretend someone, or something, is listening. But even the lamps can't fix everything. There was a night, years ago, when the fog rolled in so thick it smothered your lights as soon as they lit. You relit the same one 4 times before giving up. You sat on the curb, hands raw, and watched as your flame vanished again and again into the murk. A man passed by, nodded, and said, "Don't bother, mate. Night's winning." You still think about that, still light them anyway. Sometimes you wonder what it's all for. No one sends a thank you note to the lamplighter. There's no parade, no warm hearth, waiting when your shift ends. Just the satisfaction of knowing that, for a few hours, you kept the darkness at bay. And on a good day, that's enough. So, you shoulder your ladder, sling your pole, and disappear into the mist once more. Another block waits. Another lamp. Another small victory over a city that never sees you, but always needs your light. You notice the smell before you see the next post. It's sharp, rancid, like someone fried a boot in fish oil and regret. That's the unmistakable perfume of whale oil leaking onto a hot lantern. Your reward for tightening a valve too enthusiastically 3 weeks ago. You told yourself you'd fix it, but the leak is still there, mocking you with every sulfur scented puff. The lamp in question leans precariously over a butcher's shop, where rows of sausages dangle like a meat wind chime. The light flickers, struggling to stay alive. A gust of wind could snuff it out. You step forward, muttering encouragement, as if your voice might stabilize combustion. You uncork the canister, refill the reservoir, and catch a drop of oil on your sleeve, right where you've stitched it shut 5 times already. The stench clings like a jealous ex. You'd almost forgotten just how much this job smells. Not like a candle shop or a bonfire. No, it's something older, thicker. Whale oil doesn't just scent the air, it coats your soul. You sometimes wonder who first looked at a whale and thought, you know what we need? Soup from this beast's head to make light. Historians still argue whether whale oil was ever truly efficient compared to later fuels, but at least it was dependable, greasy, abundant, possibly cursed. Back in your apprentice days, a senior lighter warned you never to breathe in too deeply while filling a lamp. One good whiff, and you'll start seeing God. Or worse, city council. He wasn't wrong. The oil is potent. And if it drips down your neck while you're climbing, congratulations. You've marinated yourself in 19th century cologne. You light the flame and it flares fast, coughing once, before settling into its quiet glow. It always makes you pause. That tiny obedient fire steady in the damp. A small rebellion against darkness. You cap the lamp, wipe your hands on your already ruined trousers, and move on. It's getting lighter now. The city slowly reveals itself, inch by sooty inch. You pass a coffee stall setting up for the day. The owner nods. She's seen you every morning since forever, but doesn't know your name. Once, she gave you a cup for free. You still remember it. It tasted like burnt hope and cinnamon. A man with a broom waves at you. Another unthanked job. You two nod in solidarity. Silent, grimy comrades in the business of making things slightly less miserable before sunrise. You check your hands. The whale oil's done its work. Your skin is slick, blackened at the knuckles, and smells like a candle drowned in brine. You're pretty sure your fingerprints have long since dissolved. You're practically a ghost at this point, an olfactory menace wrapped in wool. There's a tavern on the corner ahead. It always needs extra oil because the lamp over its sign burns longer than the rest. You suspect someone tampered with it years ago. Either that or the building itself feeds on light and bad decisions. You lean the ladder up and begin the climb. Each step is a reminder of just how much you ache. You haven't had a proper rest in days. The city doesn't care. It demands light, like a spoiled child demands sweets, loudly, constantly, and without gratitude. Halfway up, your boot slips, not far, just enough to spike your heart rate and remind you that the only safety net is the mud below. You grip the ladder tighter. It creaks. You mutter something unholy under your breath and carry on. At the top, the oil chamber is bone dry. Of course it is. You refill it, carefully this time. The trick is not to overfill. You learned that lesson the hard way after a very enthusiastic flame turned your sleeve into a portable campfire. The tavern patrons called it the best show in months. Once lit, this lamp hums. Not audibly, more like a vibration in the air. You imagine it's singing, not to you, to the city, or maybe to the pigeons nesting above it. Either way, you nod to it because you respect stubborn things. You descend, pat the post like a friend, and make your way on. Your hands reek. Your coat is worse. You pass a shop window and catch your reflection. It's hard to say whether you're proud or horrified. You look like a chimney sweep who lost a fight with a squid. Some lighters tried perfumes lavender, rosemary, even citrus oil, but nothing cuts through whale oil. It clings, it seeps. You've tried to bathe it off, boil it out, burn it clean. Nothing works. The smell becomes part of you. You could disappear into a crowd, and someone would say, "Do you smell old fish and fire?" And suddenly everyone's looking your way. The funny part, you've grown to love it. The stink is proof you still matter. You're still lighting the lamps while others sleep, complain, or invent ways to replace you. And when people talk about city lights, they never mention what they're made of. They see the glow, not the grease. They admire the shimmer, not the effort. But you carry the stink of civilization. You are the city's quiet heartbeat, oily, sooty, unseen, and still walking. The city clock tower rings faintly through the fog. 5 chimes, distant and lazy, like it's just waking up. But you've already been walking for hours. You know the streets by memory now, not just shape, but feel. The tilt of this curb, the cracked stone near that bakery, the loose cobble that tried to eat your boot last week. You've tripped over that one 4 times. You really should report it, but by the time the city sends anyone, the cobble will have moved on to claiming entire knees. You reach another lamp, shorter this time, squat like it's given up growing. You don't need the ladder, which is a blessing, because your arms are starting to feel like overcooked noodles. You light the lamp with a practice flick and watch the glow ripple out into the gloom like a ripple in a bowl of soup no one asked for. This is how you keep time, not in hours or minutes, but in lamps. You know your shift is nearly done when you reach the post that always smells like overcooked cabbage, or the one outside the bookshop that sometimes leaves a biscuit out for you. Sometimes, not today apparently, your body operates by flame now. You light, you walk, you light again. There's no clock for your bones, no rest for your joints. You just keep moving, trusting the fire to guide your way back. You are, in a very real sense, a human metronome. Historians still argue whether the lantern lighter routes were standardized or improvised. Some cities had printed maps. Others handed you a pole and a shrug and said, "Figure it out." You suspect your city falls into the latter category. You once asked for a diagram of your route and were given a napkin with 3 stains and a doodle of a horse. So you made your own route, named your own lamps, built your rhythm. One light at a time, you have rituals. Tiny, unspoken things. You always pat the fourth post near the market square. Why? Because once it shocked you with a rogue spark, and now you think of it like an old dog that occasionally bites. You hum when you reach the alley with the crooked chimney, mostly because the echo makes it sound like someone singing with you. You double check the valve on the post near the courthouse. Ever since it once hissed like a kettle and blew your hat into next Tuesday. You remember that one especially. Your hat landed on a constable's horse. The horse did not enjoy this. You were banned from that square for a week, which was hard, since it had 6 lamps you were still required to light. You may have snuck in, dressed as a street mime. That was not your proudest moment. But that's the nature of your work. Part utility, part theater, part urban myth. Children sometimes tell stories about you. They say you talk to the lamps, that you disappear into smoke, that you were once struck by lightning and just kept walking. One claimed you were secretly the mayor in disguise. You didn't correct him. You liked the idea. There's a comfort in this repetition. The same streets, the same lamps, the same curse words whispered under your breath when the pole jams or the oil freezes or your boot finds that one puddle that seems to defy physics by always being deeper than it looks. Time for you is not measured in hours. It's measured in footsteps and lanterns, in flickers and flare ups, in the gentle gasp of flame taking hold. You pass the inn. It's always warm there, even from the street. You can hear laughter, a fiddle, clinking mugs. You once dreamed of lighting a lamp outside a place like that, then going inside, taking off your coat, sitting down, being still. But that's not your path. You move on. You're getting close to the last quarter of your route. Your legs know it before your brain does. They ache in a familiar, almost affectionate way, like, ah, yes, the pain we remember. Your left hip has begun to sing a slow, mournful tune. You hum along. You reach another lamp. It's one of your favorites. Not because it's particularly pretty, it leans like it's given up on posture, but because it overlooks the river. And when the wind is right, you catch the scent of water instead of oil. Not fresh water, mind you. This is city river water, tinged with laundry soap, fish bones, and the occasional shoe. But still, variety. You light it, watching the glow stretch out across the fog. For a moment, the river looks like liquid bronze. Then the mist swallows it again. Sometimes, just sometimes, a passerby nods at you. Not a hello, not a thank you, just acknowledgement. You treasure those. They're rare. Most people don't see you. They see the light. They don't think about who put it there, but you do. You think about all of it. You walk to the next post, and the next, and the next, because you are the city's clock, and your job is not yet done. Your route snakes into a narrower street now, the kind with buildings that lean together like gossiping ants, whispering secrets above your head. This is the part of town where the lanterns flicker even when it's dry, where shadows cling to the corners like damp laundry. You slow your pace, not because you're tired, though yes you are, but because this is the part of the route where things tend to move. Not all things, just some. Rats, mostly. Drunks, cats with agendas. The occasional pig that escaped a butcher's cart and now lives in the alley like a porcine outlaw. You once stepped on something that squeaked, hissed, and then disappeared into the fog before you could identify it. You still think about it at night. The lantern here is just outside the apothecary. It always burns a little green, possibly something in the glass, possibly magic. You don't ask questions. You just light it, watch the flame dance, and try not to think too hard about the glowing bottle labeled Dragon's Bile in the shop window. Behind you, something scuttles. You turn. Nothing. Just fog and the faint shuffle of someone 2 streets over, probably carrying bread or plotting mild mischief. This is when your senses get sharper. Not because you're scared, though you kind of are, but because the city changes at this hour. You're no longer alone, but not exactly among company either. Here come the night walkers, the chimney sweeps returning late, the washerwomen finishing a shift, the gamblers with pockets lighter and expressions heavier, and the others, the ones who don't speak, don't look up, just glide by like smoke with shoes. You've come to know their habits. The man with the limp who always circles the same block, the woman who sings lullabies to no one, the boy who leaves chalk drawings on the walls. Are they ghosts? Eccentrics? Dreamers? Historians still argue whether gas-lit streets truly reduced crime or merely changed its shape. You're not sure. You've seen dark alleys swallow people whole, and well-lit ones spit them out in worse condition. Light, it seems, doesn't always chase away danger. Sometimes it just casts more dramatic shadows. You round a corner and nearly bump into a man relieving himself against a lamppost. He mutters an apology without pausing. You sigh. That one's going to need a cleaning. Again. Sometimes the city feels like it's working against you, like it's amused by your efforts. You light a post, and 5 minutes later, a stray wind snuffs it out. You relight it, grumbling, and just as you turn your back, pfft, it dies again. You imagine the lamp giggling to itself. They do that, you know. Some have personalities. Or maybe it's just the fumes getting to your brain. There's one lamp, in particular, 2 streets from the docks, that only lights on the second try. Always the second, never the first. You've tried everything. New wick, fresh oil, pleating. Nothing changes. One failed strike. Then a glow, reliable in its stubbornness. You've named it Gertrude. You pass by the market square. Empty now, save for crates, puddles, and the lingering smell of spoiled cabbage. During the day, it's all shouting and jostling. But now, it feels like the skeleton of a carnival. You walk quieter here. No reason, just instinct. In one dark corner of the square, a pair of eyes watches you from the shadows. A cat, probably. Maybe. You nod at it. It does not nod back. Rude. A drunk man stumbles past, humming a tune that's both familiar and completely off-key. He tips an imaginary hat at you, then tries to hug your ladder. You sidestep, gracefully, like a sooty ballerina, and keep moving. You begin to understand why some people fear the night, not because it's inherently evil, but because it's unknowable. The sun tells the truth. The gaslight tells stories. You reach the alley where a baker's assistant once swore he saw a ghost, a flickering figure in a long coat who walked past a row of lit lamps without casting a shadow. He was terrified. You didn't have the heart to tell him it was probably just you. Backlit awkwardly and covered in soot. Though, even you're not entirely sure, you light another lamp. This one goes up with a satisfying whoosh, like a polite dragon clearing its throat. You smile, a rare treat. Sometimes the flame feels like it's saying thank you. Most times it says nothing. Your route brings you now to the edge of the red light district. Not that it's called that officially. The city prefers entertainment quarter, but you know better. The lamps here burn warmer, a bit lower, by design. Flattering shadows, fewer details. The ladies at the windows nod to you, some with familiarity, some with disinterest. You nod back. You don't judge. Everyone's got a job to do. One of them offers you tea once. You declined. You had lamps to light, boots to soak, and the vague feeling that sitting down might end you permanently. You reach another crooked post. The glass is cracked, like a spider web frozen in mid-scream. You'll report it later. Maybe. For now, you light it carefully, shielding the wind with your hand. For a second, the street around you glows gold. Then a rat runs across your foot and ruins the moment. You sigh and keep walking. You knew it was coming. You always know. That first fat drop on your forehead isn't a surprise anymore. It's just confirmation of what the wind's been whispering for 20 minutes. Rain. The drizzle starts like a whisper, light enough to ignore if you're in denial, which you are. Then it shifts, strengthens, and before long, it's a full-fledged, soggy mutiny from the sky. Welcome to the part of the job that separates the romantics from the realists. You pull your coat tighter, which does exactly nothing. It's already damp, like a sponge with buttons. The oilcloth lining gave up 3 winters ago. Now it's just ceremonial, like a napkin at a barbecue. The latter grows heavier when wet. It sucks in rain like it's trying to drown with dignity. You shift it on your shoulder, grimacing as the metal hook jabs your neck for the third time this morning. It always picks the exact same vertebra. You reach a lamppost, one of your oldest. It's rusted near the base, leans like it's drunk, and is held together by a bracket someone hammered in sideways. You named it Old Harold. No idea why. It just feels like a Harold. Harold has issues, specifically rain related ones. You brace the ladder. The ground is slippery now. That mix of rain, mud, and leftover city grease, a substance more perilous than any ice rink. You test the first rung. It squelches. That's a bad sign. Still, you climb. Because Harold, despite his flaws, deserves light. You shield the flame as best you can, relight the wick, and for a moment, everything works. Until, pff, the rain sneaks in, hisses on the flame, and smothers it like a wet blanket with a personal grudge. You try again. The lighter sputters. The wick's soaked. You shake your pole like you're threatening it. Nothing. You clamber down, grumbling like a retired sea captain. This is the part no one tells you about. The relighting. The relighting. In rain, one lamp can become a personal vendetta. Historians still argue whether cities provided rain bonuses to lantern lighters. Some records suggest extra pay. Others say you were simply expected to adapt to the weather like a respectable shrub. You've never seen a respectable shrub, but you get the idea. You trudge to the next lamp, shielding the flame like a secret. You light it quickly, successfully, victory. Then the wind shifts and sends rain straight into your face and down the back of your shirt. Nature is such a flirt. By the fifth lamp, you're soaked through. Whale oil and rainwater have formed some kind of unholy marinade on your skin. You smell like a fish stew that someone left out during a thunderstorm. A passing horse snorts at you, possibly in sympathy, possibly not. You remember one storm in particular. Lightning struck a lamppost 3 streets over. Not directly. It hit the weather vane on the tailor's roof, arced dramatically, and popped every lamp on the block. It took you an hour to relight them. Your boots squished for 2 days. Your eyebrows were never the same. You reach another lamp and realize the wick's gone. Just gone. Burned out or stolen. It's not unheard of. People steal the weirdest things. You once caught a man trying to use a lamppost flame to light his cigar, fell asleep standing up, and knocked the whole lamp over. He claimed it was performance art. You replaced the wick, a fiddly process made worse by wet gloves and fingers that feel like uncooked sausages. The lighter's toe won't catch. It's soggy too. You lean over, blow gently, whisper encouragement. Nothing. This is when the talking starts. You begin muttering out loud to the lamp, the rain, the universe. Come on, just one spark. That don't make me climb this blasted ladder again. I swear, if one more drop lands in my ear, the lamp doesn't respond. Lamps never do. But eventually, with a hiss and a pop, the flame catches. It dances, proud and defiant. You nod in exhausted approval. The rain thickens. Now it's a proper downpour. Your boots are ankle deep in questionable puddles. Somewhere nearby, a cartwheel sloshes through a ditch with the grace of a drowning elephant. The gutter beside you overflows with mystery soup, leaves, soot, and something that looks suspiciously like half a pie. You push forward, leaning into the storm. Your ladder creaks, your pole drips, your soul sighs. There's a myth among lighters, a joke mostly, that if you survive 100 rainy routes, the city grants you a secret key to the underground tunnels where it's always dry. No one's ever seen this key, of course, but you keep counting, just in case. You light another lamp, this one protected by an overhang. It flickers on easily, like it knows it's special. You stand there for a moment, lingering in the tiny dry zone, pretending this is a vacation. Then the wind changes direction and slaps you in the face with a wet leaf. You sigh. Again, there's no glory in this. No parade for the man who lights up the gloom and goes home smelling like a marinated chimney. But you know the truth. When the night is cold and the rain is cruel, the light matters more, and you are the one who brings it, dripping, swearing softly, climbing and slipping and lighting again, one lamp at a time. The city has a complicated relationship with you. It loves the light you bring, but treats you like a nuisance when you're in the way. You've had cabbages, rotten fruit, and once a truly memorable incident, a shoe lobbed at your head by a stranger who thought you were some kind of spirit sent to steal their soul or their last penny. The lamplighter's job, it seems, is to be seen but not heard, to illuminate but never interfere, to exist in the spaces between people's lives, noticed only when absent, and even then, usually with a curse. Superstition clings to your work like the grime on your gloves. People whisper about the lantern, lighter who can't see his own shadow, about how your flame sometimes dances too wildly, as if possessed by something mischievous. The gaslight, they say, wakes the restless. You become the unwitting harbinger of things better left alone. There are stories too. Some say the light you carry stirs spirits from their slumber, that on certain nights you're followed by a parade of unseen eyes. Others swear you carry not just fire, but a piece of the devil's own breath. That's why you sometimes catch children hiding when you pass by, clutching their blankets like charms. You remember the time you heard a scream from a narrow alley just after lighting a lamp there. You paused, heart hammering, eyes darting for signs of trouble. Nothing visible, just the faint echo of footsteps disappearing into the mist. You told yourself it was a drunk man or a startled cat. But sometimes, late at night, when you're climbing a ladder and the gas hisses softly, you wonder if the city really is whispering. Historians still argue whether such tales were a product of actual folklore or just drunken gossip passed between lighters at the tavern. Either way, they follow you, like shadows behind your own shadow. Your job isn't just about light, it's about carrying the city's fears and hopes, bundled up in flames and smoke. You're the city's invisible storyteller, the keeper of secrets whispered in flickers. You find humor where you can, like the time someone threw a cabbage at you and missed, hitting the mayor's hat instead. The mayor didn't notice. You think that was your finest hour. Or the night when a dog decided your lantern was the best chew toy in town. You chased him 3 blocks before you realized it was less about theft and more about canine amusement. The dog eventually dropped it, and you swore you saw a grin under his wet nose. You're part of the city's strange rhythm, an odd percussion in the grand symphony of gaslight and fog. No one sings songs about you, but if they did, they'd probably be somber ballads about the man who walks before dawn, carrying a flame heavier than the city's own burdens. You've been mistaken for worse, too. Some say the lantern lighter was a shape-shifting demon, others that you were the devil's errand boy, sent to collect souls with every lit lamp. One time, a group of drunks nearly set you on fire after accusing you of witchcraft. You escaped with a singed eyebrow and a very poor opinion of public opinion. Still, you show up, night after night, rain or shine, curses or applause, because you know the city needs you, even if it never says so. And when the gaslight flickers on your pole, steady and true, you smile, because you are more than just a man with a ladder and a lighter. You are the city's pulse in the dark. And nothing, not superstition, nor rain, nor rotten cabbages, can extinguish that. There's a sound you learn to dread, the soft hiss. Not loud, not alarming, just a subtle whisper of escaping gas, like the city exhaling a secret it shouldn't. It's the prelude to disaster, a warning sign that says, hey buddy, your eyebrows are about to become history. You've come close to becoming a walking torch more times than you care to count. A stray spark, a careless twist of your lighter, and suddenly, you're less lamplighter and more impromptu firework. That's the hazard of dealing with gaslight. It's elegant until it isn't. Then it's just very hot and very loud. The first time it happened, you thought the world was ending. A sudden whoosh, a burst of flame licking at your sleeve, and the smell of burning wool that no amount of scrubbing can fix. You barely got down from that ladder before your neighbors were knocking on doors, yelling about the flaming devil. You promised never to mention it, except now. Gas leaks are tricky. Sometimes you hear them, sometimes you don't. You learn to trust your instincts. A faint hiss, a smell like rotten eggs, or that odd metallic tang that sets your teeth on edge. You report leaks when you find them, but the city's response is often slow. Paperwork takes priority over the lamplighter's warnings, which means you sometimes have to work around hazards that could singe a cat's whiskers off. One memorable night, you found a leak that had turned a lamp into a miniature volcano. You spent the next half hour dancing around it with a blanket and your oil can, trying to smother flames without getting roasted. You succeeded, but only just, and your coat still smells like the ashes of regret. You carry a small toolkit for emergencies, a wrench, spare wicks, a metal cap for sealing valves, and a rag that's seen more disasters than a soap opera. You know exactly which wrench tightens which valve and which rag works best for smothering flame. You've developed a sixth sense for trouble. Historians still argue whether lamplighters ever received formal training on gas safety or if it was learned mostly by trial and error, and sometimes very literal error. Your personal experience strongly supports the latter. There was the time a rookie lamplighter, bless him, forgot to shut the main valve and turned an entire street into a scene from a fireworks show. The city was not pleased, and neither was the rookie. You found him days later, hiding in a cellar, convinced the next big explosion was coming for him. Gaslight was revolutionary. It banished shadows and brought life to the night. But it came with a temper, a volatile beauty that demanded respect and caution. You were the guardian of that delicate flame, the thin line between illumination and inferno. You learned early on that being careless meant more than burned clothes. It meant burned streets, ruined houses, and sometimes, worst of all, lives. One explosion was enough to scar a neighborhood for decades. You take your responsibilities seriously, maybe too seriously. You double check every lamp, test every valve, and keep your lighter at the ready. Your nerves are taut, like a bowstring, because you know how quickly things can go wrong. And yet the flame calls to you. There's something mesmerizing about it, the way it dances, how it pushes back the dark. You find comfort in the flicker, in the soft warmth against your face, in the knowledge that for a moment you've made the city safer. You often wonder what people think when they pass these lamps at night. Do they think about the man who keeps them lit? Or do they just enjoy the glow and move on, wrapped in their own stories? You don't mind. Your work is a silent promise, a whispered agreement with the night. You keep the flame alive, even when the gas hisses and threatens to betray you, because you know what darkness feels like, and you will not let it win. The dawn is still hours away, but you know the best part of your day is a short break, perched on the curb with your ladder resting beside you. It's the moment you get to catch your breath, share a bite, and swap stories with the soot streaked chimney sweeps who haunt the same streets. They're your unspoken allies in the city's nocturnal dance, a tribe bonded by grime and exhaustion. They look like shadows themselves, blackened faces, smudged hands, clothes so coated in soot they seem more spirit than flesh. You pass around whatever scraps you've salvaged: stale bread, dried meat, a flask of questionable tea. It's not much, but it's enough to remind you that even in this grimy world, camaraderie thrives. The sweeps share tales of narrow escapes from angry homeowners, of rooftops that groan like ancient beasts under their weight, and of those moments when a hidden chimney reveals a forgotten treasure, or worse, a family skeleton. You listen, nod, and add your own lamplighter's lore. The time a lamppost fell just after you lit it, nearly flattening a baker's cart. The mysterious green glow outside the apothecary. The rat that stole your lunch and taunted you with it. You laugh quietly, the sound muffled by the thick air and the distant clatter of awakening city life. The bond between you is silent but strong. You're both guardians of the night's secrets, keepers of the city's forgotten corners. It's here in these moments that the loneliness fades, because during your route, you're invisible. But with the sweeps, you're just another soul, fighting the cold and darkness together. You wipe soot from your face and realize you've lost count of the days you've spent like this, climbing, lighting, coughing, laughing. The years blur, marked only by the slow decay of your boots and the growing pile of nicks on your ladder. Historians still argue whether lamplighters and chimney sweeps ever formed official guilds or fraternities. You're not part of any, but in these pre-dawn gatherings, you feel the closest to belonging. A patchwork family forged from ash and oil. Your throat is dry, your fingers stiff, but for a few stolen minutes, you're warm. Not because of the lamps or the fires, but because of human connection. Because even in the darkest jobs, people find light in each other. Soon, the city will stir fully. Shopkeepers will open their doors. Merchants will shout prices. Children will race through the streets. The night's quiet kingdom will vanish under the weight of daylight. You finish your bite, straighten your coat, and hoist your ladder. The break is over. There are more lamps to light, more streets to tame. You exchange nods with the sweeps. See you tonight, one says. You smile. See you in the shadows. And with that, you vanish back into the fog, the flicker of your lantern a small promise against the coming dawn. You've noticed it 1,000 times, but never get used to it. The strange invisibility cloak you wear during the day. When you're on the streets in daylight, people don't see you. They don't notice the man whose hands have lit every lamp, who's kept the darkest alleys safe with nothing but a flame and stubborn feet. At best, they curse when a lamp goes out. At worst, they never even think about who's responsible when it's glowing steady. You've learned to accept this. You're the city's unthanked hero, the invisible thread weaving light through shadow. Your name is rarely spoken, your presence taken for granted. The baker who waves at the rising sun never thanks the man who made sure his window was illuminated the night before. The clerk who reads by gaslight won't remember your careful hands. Even the constable who patrols the streets in the early hours never greets you. It's a lonely trade, and yet you do it. Night after night, lighting posts, climbing ladders, chasing ghosts of flame. Sometimes, when a lamp fails, the curses rain down. Why is this one always out? A passerby snaps. Do they even have someone to fix these things? Another adds, it's disgusting. You bite your tongue because you know that someone is you. No one sees the countless hours spent replacing wicks, refilling oil, repairing glass. No one notices the ladders you drag through puddles, the bruises on your knees, the countless times you've slipped and caught yourself just in time. The city enjoys the light, but shuns the lighter. Once, you tried to strike up a conversation with a shopkeeper. You mentioned the new lamps you'd installed. She nodded, distracted, and said, "Well, someone's got to do it." That was it. Not a thank you, not even a glance. You smile, but it's the smile of a man who knows his place. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were ever formally recognized or officially paid for their work, or if they were simply tolerated as necessary nuisances. Whatever the case, you've never received a medal. No bonuses, no promotions, just more lamps to light. Sometimes you catch a glance from a child, curious and wide-eyed, watching you balance on a ladder. They see a hero. For a fleeting moment, you are one, but the grown-ups don't see. They're too busy walking fast, heads down, avoiding the damp and the dark. You keep the lamps burning anyway, because even if no one sees you, you see them. The ones who need the light to find their way home, to avoid broken cobbles, to feel safe just for a little while. You take comfort in that, in being the quiet guardian of the night. The city doesn't thank you. It forgets you. But that's fine, because you're here, and the lamps are lit. And that's all that matters. Midnight is the true test. The hour when the city feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen or to not happen. The late shift is no joke. You're tasked not only with lighting lamps, but also with extinguishing them in the right order, a ritual often overlooked by the day dwellers, who assume lights burn endlessly. You approach the first lamp you must snuff out. It hisses quietly in protest, as if begging for just a few more moments of glory. You raise your pole, flick the snuffer, and watch the flame waver before vanishing like a whispered secret. It's a small, solemn victory, one lamp less to worry about, one step closer to your own rest. But the night is far from silent. Shadows stretch long and mischief stirs. Drunks wobble down the streets, their laughter echoing between gas lamps. You dodge a staggering man who nearly collides with your ladder, apologizing slurredly but managing a grin that suggests tonight's troubles are his best friends. This is when the ghosts come out. Not the ones with sheets and chains, but the city's real night creatures. The prowling thieves, the desperate gamblers, the stray dogs with eyes that gleam like lantern flames themselves. You know the stories, how gaslight didn't always keep the darkness at bay, but sometimes highlighted its more sinister residents. You've had close calls, once nearly losing a lantern to a pickpocket who thought your pole was a prize. Historians still argue whether gaslight reduced crime or merely pushed it into new, more cunning forms. You suspect the latter. Light shows the way, but it also reveals what would prefer to remain unseen. You finish your rounds, extinguishing lamp after lamp. It's a quiet, methodical dance, one you've perfected over years. You know exactly which lamps are temperamental, which flicker even after snuffing, and which require a gentle pat to truly die. By the time the last lamp surrenders its flame, your feet ache like you've run a marathon in boots 2 sizes too small. Your breath is visible in the chilled air. You tuck your pole under your arm, eye the empty streets, and feel the heavy cloak of solitude settle over you. There's no applause, no thank you, just the city. Sleeping under a blanket of shadows and muted stars, you head home, your coat dripping, your spirit weary but unbroken. Because while the lamps may go dark, your work, the real work, is never done. Your feet ache like a grumpy old dog, but there's no time for complaining. You're still walking, still patrolling, still holding onto the rhythm of the city's pulse. The streets seem endless at this hour, twisting and turning like a labyrinth designed to test the endurance of a man with a ladder and a light. You pass familiar doorways and shuttered windows, some still faintly glowing from candles, others plunged into darkness despite your best efforts. You wonder about the people inside. Do they know you've kept their path safe tonight? Or are you just a shadow in the periphery of their dreams? Your steps echo softly against wet cobblestones. Somewhere, a dog barks. Somewhere else, a cat yowls. The city breathes around you, alive and restless even when everyone else sleeps. You feel the weight of solitude pressing down, not the loneliness of isolation, but the kind that comes from being the unseen guardian. Your job is not to be remembered, but to remember the city's darkest corners, to light them just enough so no one falls through. Your boots splash through puddles that reflect gaslight like broken mirrors. You catch your reflection briefly, a face smudged with soot, eyes tired but alert, hands rough as weathered leather. You smile, a small tired smile. You've been doing this a long time. You've climbed ladders in rain, wind, fog, and snow. You've been cursed, laughed at, ignored, and sometimes thanked. But mostly, you've been needed. The city needs you, even if it won't say so. You stop for a moment near the old clock tower, watching the slow rotation of its hands against the dim glow of the gas lamps. Time feels different here, slower, heavier, wrapped in shadows. Your legs beg for rest, but your mind stays sharp. You check your oil can, almost empty. You sigh. Tomorrow you'll need more, always more. Historians still argue whether the lamplighter's role was ever truly valued, or if it was always just a stopgap before the electric age. You don't care about the debates. You care about the light. You take a deep breath. Sharp, cold air filling your lungs. You think about your family, tucked away in warm beds, probably dreaming of a world too bright to remember you. You shuffle on, climbing the last ladder for the night. The lamp flares alive, a beacon against the darkness. You reach out a hand and touch the warm glass, feeling a strange connection to the tiny flame that has survived so many nights. You are the lamplighter, the keeper of the city's fragile light, the quiet flame before dawn. And though the world may forget you, you will always remember the night. You've started hearing whispers about change. The city is talking about progress, new inventions, promises of electric light, streets that glow without a man and his oil can. It sounds like a dream or a betrayal. You remember the first time you heard about gas pipes that could light lamps without your help. It felt like a knife wrapped in velvet. Efficient, they said. Reliable, they said. But it meant one thing to you. Your ladder was becoming a relic, your root shrinking like a candle's flame. At first, you thought it was a rumor, a cruel joke from City Hall. But then, gaslights began popping up on main streets, their steady blue flames a stark contrast to your warm, flickering glow. The city seemed brighter, safer, and less forgiving of your labor. Your old lamps, oil stained and stubborn, started to be replaced. City workers installed iron posts with pipes and knobs that glowed without a lighter's touch. It was magical and terrifying. You showed up for your route one morning to find half the lamps already lit by machinery, no pole or oil can in sight. Your heart sank. You were still expected to light the rest, but the writing was on the wall. Historians still argue whether lamplighters fought the change or accepted it quietly. Some say they resisted fiercely. Others say they welcomed relief from the backbreaking work. You weren't sure. You were too busy worrying about your future. The city council held meetings you weren't invited to. Debates about efficiency, cost, and modernization filled grand halls. They talked about progress, about leaving behind archaic practices. But to you, it was erasure. You tried to adapt. You learned the new systems, inspected gas valves, and carried tools to maintain the pipes. But it wasn't the same. No ladder climbs, no flickering flame, just cold metal and silent switches. Your hands missed the pole's familiar weight. Your lungs missed the oily scent, even if it meant coughing for days. You still walked the streets at dawn, but fewer lamps needed your touch. Your route shortened. Your days grew quieter. The city was changing, and you were becoming a ghost. One night, you stood by a gas lamp, watching its steady glow pulse in the fog. You ran your fingers over the metal post, cold and unyielding. The lamp never faltered. It never danced. It just shone. You realized then that the city didn't need you like it once did. The light was automatic now, reliable, unsentimental. You felt invisible, but you kept walking, because even if the city forgot the man with the oil can and the ladder, you couldn't forget the city. And the lamps, old and new, that told its story. The day came faster than you expected. You were called into City Hall, a place as cold and unwelcoming as a winter's dawn. The clerk barely looked up as he handed you a letter, official, stamped, and utterly clear. Your services were no longer required. No more oil cans. No more ladders. No more late nights chasing flames. You felt a strange mix of relief and loss. Relief because your knees no longer screamed with every step, your fingers no longer burned with every climb. But loss? A deep, gnawing hollow where purpose used to live. You tried to sell your ladder. The old wood and rusty hinges seemed useless in this brave new world. Who wanted a 12-foot stick when electric light was the future? You left it leaning against a fence, a silent monument to a trade vanishing into history. The oil can sat gathering dust in your attic, a relic of a time when light was a labor, not a flick of a switch. You polished it once, half-heartedly, but the smell lingered, stubborn and familiar. You tried new jobs, street cleaner, messenger, odd jobs around the docks. Nothing held the rhythm you once had. The city's heartbeat felt out of sync without your footsteps marking the night. You told your grandson stories, some true, some embellished, about the nights you carried light through fog and rain, about the lamps that never lit on the first try, about the city that never thanked you. He listened wide-eyed, marveling at the life you lived. "Were you a hero, Grandpa?" he asked once. You smiled, then shrugged. Just a man with a ladder and a stubborn flame. The city moved on, brighter and quieter. Lampposts hummed softly. No smoke, no hiss, no flicker. But every so often, when the fog rolls in just right and the night feels alive, you swear you can see a faint glow in the distance. Not the steady, cold light of progress, but a warm, flickering flame, the ghost of a lamplighter's lantern. You reach out, almost expecting to touch it, but it fades like a dream at dawn. Historians still debate how much the lamplighter's craft shaped the city's soul. Some say it was a necessary burden, others call it a forgotten art. To you, it was life itself, each light a heartbeat, each climb a testament. Now, with your stories told and your ladder gone, you walk quieter streets. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the night is thick and the city is still, you hear the whisper of a flame, and you smile, because the light never truly dies. Sometimes, late at night, you take a walk through the city, now bathed in electric glow, too bright and too steady for your liking. The streets are no longer a maze of flickering shadows, but a seamless wash of white light. There's no room for secrets here, no soft flicker to lull the eyes into quiet wonder. Everything is seen, exposed, cataloged. You miss the dance of gaslight, the way it teased the edges of darkness, flirting with shadow, making the city feel alive and mysterious. Now, it feels like someone installed a spotlight on the mundane, revealing cracks in the pavement no one wanted to see. Your footsteps echo differently here, no longer a rhythmic beat of purpose, but a slow, hesitant shuffle of nostalgia. You pass the old square, where a single gas lamp remains as a monument, its flame carefully tended by the historical society. Tourists gather around it, snapping pictures, oblivious to what it once meant to a man like you. Years of cold, fog, and tireless care. You smile sadly and move on. Your hand brushes a cold metal post, one of many silent witnesses to your former life. No flame, no warmth, just the echo of a job lost to time. Sometimes you pause near a lamp, close your eyes, and imagine the old days, the hiss of gas, the glow of flame, the rhythm of ladders climbing into mist. Your heart still lights up, even if the city no longer does. You think of the men who came before you, the ones who handed you the torch, or rather, the oil can and ladder, the ones who knew the city's darkness as intimately as their own hands, the men who made the nights safe with nothing but grit and fire. And you realize the city's heart is still beating quietly, persistently, beneath the hum of progress. You are part of that heartbeat. A faint glow in the fog, a story whispered by light and shadow. And though you walk alone now, the flame you carried never truly went out. It lives in every corner of the city, in every flicker of memory, in the warm glow that once danced in your hands. You take one last look at the city skyline, a patchwork of neon and shadow, and whisper to the night, "Thank you for letting me light the way." Then, with a deep breath, you walk home. The city has changed, but some things stubbornly remain the same. You walk past cafes with glowing screens instead of flickering lamps, where people sip coffee instead of worrying about gas leaks. Smartphones replace your pole, and electric bulbs hum a constant, unblinking vigil. You wonder if anyone remembers the hands that once coaxed light from darkness, the backs bent over oil cans, the calloused palms clutching ladders, the nights spent chasing flames through fog and rain. Sometimes you catch a glimpse of your reflection in a shop window, older, worn, but carrying the same tired pride. You think about the countless nights when the city was silent but for your footsteps, the subtle hiss of gas, and the fragile glow of a lantern. Your stories have become legend, passed down by grandchildren, tucked into local museums, written in dusty books no one reads. by gaslight anymore. Historians still debate the lamplighter's true role in the city's growth, whether they were mere servants or unsung heroes. You don't care about the debate. You lived it. One evening, you meet a young man who's taken up a new craft, restoring old lampposts, polishing glass, replacing wicks in museums. You tell him about your days, about the lamps that wouldn't light, the rats that chased you, the rain that soaked you to the bone. He listens, eyes wide as if hearing a fairy tale. You smile and hand him a small rusty wick cutter. Keep the flame alive, you say. He nods, understanding that this is more than a tool. It's a symbol. The city may have moved on, but the light you carried still burns somewhere, in stories, memories, and in the hearts of those who remember to look. And as you watch the young man climb his ladder, lighting a restored gas lamp, you know the legacy of the lamplighter is far from extinguished. For every city needs its light, and every light its keeper. You sit by the window of your small, dim room, a cup of lukewarm tea cradled between calloused hands. Outside, the city hums with electric life, indifferent to the man who once danced with flame before dawn. Your ladder leans silently in the corner, a relic of a past era. You think back to those endless nights, the climb, the cold, the hiss of gas and warmth of flame, the smell of whale oil mixed with fog, and the faint sound of distant footsteps. Each lamp lit was a small victory over darkness, a promise to the city that night would not claim it entirely. Your grandson sits nearby, eyes bright with curiosity. You tell him about your life with a gentle voice, painting pictures of gaslit streets and the men who kept the night safe. His questions are endless, but so is your patience. Did you ever get scared, Grandpa? He asks. Of course, you reply with a smile. But fear is just another part of the job. You learn to live with it, and sometimes it lights your way. The room feels warm despite the chill outside. Memories flicker, like shadows on the wall, soft and fleeting. You feel the weight of years, the ache in your bones, but also the quiet pride of a life well lived. You whisper to yourself, the flame may fade, but the light it gave will never truly die. Outside, the city sleeps, wrapped in the glow of progress and memory. And somewhere, in the soft hush before dawn, you feel the pulse of a gas lamp's flicker, faint but persistent. You close your eyes, the gentle hum of the fan mingling with the whispers of light and shadow. Sweet dreams, city of lamps. The streets are alive with tourists now, their cameras flashing at every corner like a storm of fireflies. They pose beneath lampposts that still stand tall, some glowing with that vintage gaslight charm, others replaced by electric bulbs that hum with modern certainty. They don't see you, of course. You're just part of the scenery, the invisible thread in the tapestry of city life. You watch them laugh and stumble, tracing old cobblestones where you once carried your ladder. They tell stories about the city's history, snapping pictures of lamps you once lit by hand, but never stopped to wonder who kept those lamps burning in the deepest dark. Your heart swells with a quiet pride and a touch of melancholy. You were there. You lived the nights when light was a fragile thing, coaxed to life by stubborn hands and stubborn flame. The city's stories forget the lamplighter, but you don't forget yourself. You remember the early mornings when the world was silent but for the hiss of gas and the crackle of flame. You remember the rain, the fog, the rat chasing you down an alley. You remember the weight of the ladder, the sting of the oil, the warmth of the light in the cold. Tourists might marvel at the beauty, but you carry the memory of labor, the ache, the risk, the relentless rhythm of a job that never ended until the dawn. Sometimes you think about the city without lamplighters, bright, efficient, but somehow colder, missing that human touch. The man or woman who braved the night, carried the flame, and walked so others could see. You smile to yourself. Your story may be a whisper in the pages of history, but it's a flame that won't be snuffed out. And as the tourists pose beneath your old lamps, you nod silently, knowing that in some small way you are still here, still lighting the way. You take one last walk through the city, the streets glowing softly beneath your feet. It's quiet, almost reverent. The lamps flicker gently, as if honoring the memory of the men who carried fire through fog and shadow. Your steps are slow, deliberate, each one a farewell and a thank you. The night air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain and old oil. You feel the cool touch of mist on your face, a whisper of the past wrapped in the present. The city breathes around you, alive and ever changing, yet somehow still the same. You pause beneath a solitary lamp, one that still burns with the warm flickering glow of gaslight. You reach out, your fingers brushing the cool glass. It hums softly, a heartbeat in the night. Memories flood back, the ladders, the oil cans, the long climbs and longer nights, the hiss of gas, the smell of whale oil, the city's secrets whispered in flame. You remember the faces you never knew, the streets that never slept, the light you carried through darkness. You smile softly, the weight of years lifting, replaced by a quiet peace. The city's story is yours, and yours alone. The lamplighter's legacy lives in every flicker, every shadow chased away by fire. You turn away, your figure swallowed by the gentle haze of night. The lamp continues to burn, steadfast and true, and as you disappear into the quiet city, you know this is not the end. It is a beginning of memory, of story, of light. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let the city's gentle glow carry you into dreams. Sweet dreams, lamplighter.